Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wisecast. It has been a hot minute since we have done one of these, and we're so appreciative for everyone who is tuning in. We've got some really exciting guests on here today that I'm going to turn over to Eduardo to do a little bit more specific introductions, but let's get right into it.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, it's been a while since we had the last one. Always trying to, bring information and sharing some advices, hints, and tips, especially when we have specialists in the area.
Yes.
We're a software company that prime and try to have great partners, and we are starting an amazing relationship here with the company that brings more money to your bank accounts. The whole idea, it's not to hanging there with this long accounts receivable reports, but instead to see those kaching in your bank account. Today, we're going to have here Tim from TekCollect. It's a company that came to us referred by large accounts with very good credentials. So we are very excited to have this addendum to our group and the Family Wise Option family. Tim, welcome. And I believe you brought pretty good stuff for us today.
Well, thank you, Eduardo and Rachel, for inviting TekCollect. It's an honor to be here and to work alongside with you.
All right. We are really eager to hear what we can get in the tips for a better collection so we don't have the money, just hanging there. But first, we're going to have just a quick intro for our Wisecast. We're going to clear our throats here, drink some water, and bring you a bunch of good stuff.
We'll be right back.
Welcome to Wisecast. This podcast was created and fully funded by Wise Option, with the intention to provide helpful information to our users via an informal conversational video podcast. This video podcast does not receive funds from third-party sponsorship or otherwise outside donations, and only represents our personal opinions. We want to share with you our experiences, and it should not be taken as personal, business, medical, or veterinary advice. Do not disclose any of our clients' data or personal information and respect our clients' privacy. This is a conversation between us and our users, but includes information we feel may be helpful to all in the horse industry. If you are not yet a Wise Option user, please tune in and let us know what you think. Tune in while working on paperwork or on the drive home. Even though this is a video podcast, it was designed to be listened to without the video as well. So while driving, please keep your eyes on the road and save your questions for when you reach your destination. If you would like to leave a comment, please go to the Wise Option discussion group on Facebook, where there will be a designated post for the podcast. So, let's get started.
All right. So here we're back and good to go. So this is how we're going to work, guys. We are going to, I believe Tim prepared some, basic information for us. We're going to learn a little bit about TekCollect today. Also some good hints and tips he might have in his bag for us. Rachel and I, we're going to be tagging along. We're going to take some notes. And right after, we're going to open the floor. If you guys with us online, just post your questions. I'm pretty sure that Rachel and I were going to contribute with some as well. So, Tim, you have the floor, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Eduardo. Thank you all for taking the time to meet here today. We will get started. And so I wanted to start with the TekCollect overview. And TekCollect is the nation's leading provider of strategic, customized, economical cash flow management systems. We are looked upon as the premier resource when veterinary professionals require assistance and guidance to a very sensitive area of managing their accounts receivable. TekCollect's full-service accounts receivable management solutions provide both time and cost savings while using a soft, non-alienating approach. TekCollect's integration with Wise Option and their low-cost fees is why the AVMA chose TekCollect to become their provider for their Member Edge program. The TekCollect difference. TekCollect is very different than most agencies in that we guarantee results to our clients. Fees will typically average less than 5%, and that is regardless of the balance due. When accounts are placed, we're going to do all the work, but the money is going to be paid directly back to your practice. In the event that your client refuses to pay at your request, but at our company's expense, we would even take them to court. And if your practice is like most, you don't want to have to give up a high percentage of your profit, or your profit margin to have your money collected. And this is how we're different. We are designed to be an extension of your practice, help you get paid, and to maintain a relationship with your client. Question number 1, what is the best advice that you can provide for anyone who is trying to improve their AR situation? The number 1 item has to be in place is a solid office policy / client information form. And this has to be done on paper. I respect those who like to go paperless, but it is important to verify with your client of how you expect to get paid. They need to touch and feel and really know the sense of urgency to fulfill their obligation. And so that anything that you can do from day one to minimize your risk, the less chance you'll have issues at 30, 60, or 90 days down the road. It's important to have a comprehensive form gathering all the pertinent information, and is more than just the basic contact information, such as you need to show your payment expectations. When do you expect to get paid? Payment offerings. Do you offer or do you accept cash, credit cards, or any payment provider solutions? A nice option to have is do you have a payment portal on your website? You'll want to make it easy for your client to pay. A good example of this, you might have a remote client or someone who's overseas. And plus, this eliminates the excuse of payments being lost in the mail or that they're out of the country. This does not mean that you won't work with someone. There can be flexibility, but with your control. It's important to list the ramifications if someone doesn't pay. There is verbiage out there to add to your office policy form that legally allows you to add collection and/or attorney fees to unpaid balances. This is in states where it is allowed by law, and this is most states throughout the country. Having the ability to pass these costs back to your client not only provides you leverage to use before you have to place the account for collections, but also helps offset your collection and/or attorney fees. One other benefit is that it will teach your client base to pay you in a timely manner. What a problem. It's called cash flow. Is there anything else that is important? Well, the second most important item is that, and this can be the most difficult concept for some, and it is enforcing your office policy. From the front desk to the docks, everyone has to be on one page, or you risk losing its effectiveness. And here lies the problem. And I'll be more specific, the equine veterinary profession has allowed loose payment policies since the beginning of time. I mean, how many times have you heard, I can't turn that person in for collections because I will lose them as a client? And if you just stop and think about this, presently, not only do they owe you the money, but they're probably using another veterinarian, and now you're losing out on that money as well. So you may have already lost them. You see, managing your accounts receivable doesn't have to be a 4-letter word, but if you think about it, it is. It's called being fair. If you're fair with your clients at day one, then you can expect them to be fair with you 60, 90 days down the road. It's just that simple. Question number 3, what information should we be gathering on our client information form? This is important. You should be asking for more than just the basic mailing and phone information. You should also ask for the person's cell phone number and email address. There have been recent laws changed where it allows agencies to contact someone via a text or email. This is fairly new. You want to make sure that you're asking for a driver's license number, date of birth. Why? Well, the government now requires all agencies to verify that someone is who we say they are before we can report them to the credit bureau. So we do need at least one of these to do so. Might there be a second residence where we can contact, or a place of business contact information for that individual person? Is there a barn manager or trainer involved where you should have their information as well? So to recap, you want to have a solid office policy in place, and it should be on paper. And the reason I say this is it can be used as a leave behind. You can email it, you can put it in the regular mail, stuff it in with the regular statements that go out. So everybody's all on one page all at one time. You also want to enforce the policy. It's no good to have a policy if everybody isn't on the same page. But at the same time, you can still be flexible, however, with limitations. It's called being fair, and now you enjoy better cash flow.
As we can see, it's all about good practices, right? We always
That is absolutely correct.
Prevention, I guess, is the word.
Yes.
Well, I was watching during your presentation, and we deal with customers, our clients, and now we're going to have clients in common. That the idea is to help them to maximize. One thing that you said, it's now required to have one of those records: date of birth, driver's license, one of them, or all of them.
Just one of them. The third option might be a social security number, but we don't generally recommend that because that is very difficult to obtain these days. Driver's license and date of birth is fairly easy to obtain.
Fairly easy. I will be honest with you. If a business, a place that probably not if it is healthcare, like a dentist or insurance. But if somebody's taking care of my horses, why would I provide my date of birth? I'd say, why would you care? What is a good way around to persuade people to provide such a sensitive data information?
Well, it's to help with the office policy. They can use the excuse that their CPA or their accounting firm requires that for their clients. So that's a good excuse to use.
Yeah. Well, I'm here wearing my sales hat for a moment. I would say, well, maybe we can send you guys a good gift card for a restaurant if you're a good client on your birthday. So we like to praise it's a good interaction. I probably would go around with the marketing and here just trying to give our folks some options out there on how to retrieve information. But at the end of the day, it's security for you guys to have the tools in hand so you at least can pursue the case, I guess.
Absolutely.
Well, I was impressed to hear about your rates, and you mentioned 5%. Is all across 5%? Do you have thresholds? What is actually the application of these 5%?
So the rationale behind the 5%, it allows our clients to use us at an earlier stage in delinquency when the account is more collectible, and we can entertain a more soft approach, kind of be the extension of the practice. Whereas historically, the collection industry as a whole uses old school collection tactics. They didn't work 20 years ago, and they certainly do not work in today's economy. So
can you give us one of them? What you call old tactics?
Old tactics is just kind of strong arm or harsh tactics, calling them constantly on the phone. Whereas we become an extension of the practice, kind of act, and actually we can call on behalf of that practice and send notices with their letterhead on it so that their client doesn't even recognize that someone outside of their practice is pursuing the account.
Oh, that's interesting. It sounds very professional. So the 5% would be only on this first interaction, on these first attempts, I believe, through letters or automated message, some sort of thing.
It's a full service with letters, phone campaigns. We use several phone campaigns throughout our primary phase, balance verification letters, even attorney demand is always inclusive of that fee.
Well, one thing that caught my attention was the fact that the 5% becomes very attractive. I believe it's just based. This comment that I make is only based on exchanging information on the practices out there. They usually have sometimes even developed an internal accounts receivable department because the fees are usually so outrageous that they prefer to hire somebody and put a full time making phone calls. But with this 5%, then the outsourcing makes perfect sense.
Exactly. Where they can now focus more so on growing their own business.
True. It's like they're not their core competencies, right? It's like we
That's
usually
correct.
say, leave the tech knowledge for us, leave the collection for TekCollect, and go be a doctor out there. I think it's a good combination in that sense.
And you couple that with the staffing shortages that everyone is experiencing across the country, we can become their part-time person as the ebb and flow of volume of their business or delinquent accounts occur. So we have the resources already in place to kind of complement what they're trying or to accomplish on their own.
I see. Now, interesting question, and I'm curious to hear, Tim, on this first round that applies this 5%, what is the percentage of successful, conversion that people will pay?
Two things determine the collectability of an account. One is simple, the age of the account. That is the most, or could be the most deteriorating factor in the collectability. The second item would be, was the person creditworthy in the beginning? That could become the proverbial blood from a stone, where no one's going to be successful at that point. But for clients who take heed our lessons and take our direction, anywhere from a 40 to a 60% recovery ratio is very common. Some much higher.
I gotcha. What is the next level after this 5%?
So at the end of our primary phase, the client has the option of having us pursue any further. The secondary phase of our service is kind of designed for that hardcore collections. We have services clear through the litigation, but it would be at my company's expense. They're not going to have the upfront cost now for litigation. That's all at my company's expense.
I gotcha. And that second phase would be, averages speaking, how many days from start?
That varies by account and the situation. So that's a difficult number to put on there.
I like that because it doesn't sound like a static decision.
Right.
Sometimes the person is almost there. Why not you wait another week? So it sounds reasonable to me what you're saying. And percentage wise, how many cases you end up having on the hard or even court for that matter?
Well, again, we average at 40 to 60% in the primary phase.
Okay.
So
That's
the
pretty
bulk,
high.
yeah, the average in the industry is averaging 15 to 17% as a whole, as the collection industry.
Wow,
So
that's great.
we're more than 3 times the national average.
Okay. It was very interesting for me, when I came first in the United States from Brazil, and I did my master's in business. I first did it in technology, then I did in business, which was for me, I must say, hocus pocus. Talking languages like marketing and finances and stuff like that. I'm just a computer geek. But the fact is, that was the first time I heard the term firing a customer. I said, what are you talking about? Firing a customer. I'm used to hear about people firing employees, but not a customer. And you mentioned a situation that apparently some businesses keep that hope or the name of some accounts in their baggage of customers, saying, but actually they're actually dragging their resources and making things just harder. Do you think that business in general do get this concept about firing customer because simply they are not profitable whatsoever?
After they have invested an enormous amount of time of their own trying to pursue the account, do they then give up? Hence, the old school collections practices kind of kicked in at that point. Whereas having fees less than 5%, they don't have to go through all that. They can choose to work their own accounts earlier in delinquency when, one, it is more collectible, two, it's more cost effective, and then Once the account gets 60 to 90 days past due, they can choose to place that particular account if they're not communicating. If they're working with them, that's a whole different story. We shouldn't be getting those types of accounts. So it gives them some leverage, some flexibility, and certainly some options.
How can a company like Wise Option help you guys to expedite this process and make lives even easier for the administration departments in the practices out there?
Simply by just helping us get the word out. Certainly, the integration is going to be a huge time saver for the practice. And if you just think about that piece alone, thinking about the practice manager or the person who oversees the accounts receivable, they spend an enormous amount of time in this area. And with an integration piece, is going to save them hours over the course of a month, and a lot of dollars at the same time. So it truly becomes a win-win for everybody involved.
I agree with you in that sense, because not only the person consumed the service, now that bad business is also consuming the time if the practice decides to go after collections themselves. And just the time that it consumes, not only the resources they put, the time, treating initially, then the time of the money, stuck there that they don't collect. And finally, still investing more time trying to get their hands on the money they already have the right on. It seems simply unlogical to me, that it just keeps piling up. Now, for you guys out there, I would like to put we are in the process of integrating Wise Option with TekCollect, and I'm so excited about this project in the manner that here at Wise Option we value a lot what we call silent communication, and just what you guys team are offering by your platform, making possible that through Wise Option they can access and transfer account to you guys without not even making one phone call. That's amazing what the technology can make. And so I think it's going to be such a huge pile of savings in this case that we can provide to our common clients. Savings not going over the agent accounts receivable, saving managing these things. And now you're presenting this affordable rates. I think it makes perfect sense to go for the outsource and make it happening. Well,
it's actually going to make dollars and cents for the clients.
Exactly. We have received, tons of questions, especially now that we are offering portals for credit card processing here, Wise Option. We have digital wallets, and we have, trying to facilitate all your suggestions during your presentation. When you are collecting money, are you planning to use the portal in Wise Option, or you're going to have your own portal?
We will leave it at the discretion of the client. Ideally, it would be nice to have them use the Wise Option payment portal. We can talk them through how to access it and input the information, stay on the line with them as they actually make the payment.
That's great, because then the customer informs, and Wise Option can seamless pass the information to TekCollect, and likewise. So this is going to be a great thing. So I'm very excited. Rachel, any comments on your side?
Really, the comments on my side I think you all brought it up at the beginning of the conversation there, but I think what struck me the most, Tim, about your presentation was, how TekCollect is different than your typical collection company agency. Because I've always had the same very much feeling like as an employee at different facilities, and when the talk of collection comes up, we all kind of get that dread of like, oh, do we really want to send it? We get kind of that dread of like, oh, do we really want to deal with the hassle that it is in collections? And then the typical, you think of collection, you think very much of the strong arm approach. And I love, what's been presented about TekCollect's approach to collections, and how I loved what you said, it's just an extension of the business, right? It's adding employees. It's because a lot of times it's just, how many times can you can you just reach out to someone in a slightly different way, right? Send them an email, wait a little bit, send them a text message. Sometimes that's all that it takes. But having just a regular employee that's got 50,000 other things to do, completely manage all of those, it very easily becomes unmanageable. And with TekCollect's very competitive rates and great approaches and a very soft beginning approach, I'm very excited for the potential benefits that'll bring to a lot of our users.
Yeah. Another thing, Rachel, and sharing exactly what you mentioned about this, one of the things that Tim mentioned in the beginning that caught my attention was the fact, highlighting the point about policies. I have been to so many practices that they think initially that customer service is all about the least time waiting for the customer. And sometimes they will shadow the paperwork, just be in a hurry to put the horse, in service. Of course, I'm not talking about an emergency here. Emergency is an emergency, but the word itself explains. But even regular cases, sometimes we have had our clients with a little anxiety to be so fast with the answer that they simply jump all the policies, exposing the business to these vulnerabilities that ends up biting back and creating this bad taste, if I will, to certain clienteles, which it's their own fault. And I think I have to put myself as a consumer when I go to any facility. I like to use the examples from McDonald's. Try to get a hamburger without paying first. You won't get anything. So I think it's fair. You use the word fair in your presentation several times. And I think that our crowd should not be so afraid of talking about protocols and paperwork before putting the hands on the patient. Again, eliminating the case of emergencies. We are not talking.
Anything they can do to eliminate what I call the gray area of how they expect to get paid, the better off they're going to be 30, 60 days down the road. It all starts from day one.
Yep. You're not being disrespectful. You have protocols. Actually, you're presenting that you have an organized a practice in place with protocols and methods. And of course, the more you practice, nowadays, even through Wise Option, we can make forms available up front that the customers can fill out electronics, avoiding the hassle for the customer to have to go through that when they get to the front desk. So there's so many ideas we can share with our crowd. Of course, a podcast like this is just the tip of the iceberg. Sure. But I have seen over and over, astonish me to see the amount of dollars I have seen people piling up in their reports, and sometimes simply not knowing that help is out there at an affordable rate. That was what huge surprise for myself, to see that it's doable. And that people can, I'm totally on board with this project. I'm really cheering here for us to get this going as fast as possible. You guys out there, our current crowd should expect something around February as our first release. This is our calendar. Tim thinks that's a little rush. But we are going to prioritize this project as much as we can. And for our crowd, for those who are thinking to come to Wise Option, here's one extra argument, a nice incentive for you to join our group. But especially for those already utilizing Wise Option, it's going to be another great service that we are planning and making available to you guys at your fingertips. So the idea, it's maybe on version 5 or 6, that you can perform all your actions with TekCollect through Wise Option. So you don't have to leave our portal. You don't have to leave your application to pass the case, as well as to get an update on each one of the cases that are with TekCollect, because I believe, right, Tim, that you have a platform with event logs and historical, step-by-step what's going on your side.
Absolutely. They can see firsthand what is done, transpire from start to finish.
Yes, it's very important. So, guys, it was great. Tim, thank you so much for coming by. Looking forward. The word is out there. TekCollect and Wise Options, hand in hand, coming soon. And to all of you watching, thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you in our next instance. You guys have all a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.